Don't look for us. Those 4 words were waiting for me on the kitchen counter the morning I turned 18. At first, I honestly thought it was some kind of strange joke. My alarm had gone off at exactly 6:14 a.m., the same soft piano ringtone I'd used since sophomore year, but something already felt wrong before I even opened my eyes. The house was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Not sleepy Sunday morning quiet. Empty quiet. The kind that presses against your ears until you start hearing your own heartbeat. I lay there for a few seconds staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to my ceiling from when I was 12. Usually my mom would already be downstairs making coffee before sunrise. She always played old Fleetwood Mac songs through the kitchen speaker while packing my dad's lunch for work. My father would cough exactly twice while reading the news on his tablet. Every morning sounded the same in our house. But that morning there was nothing. No music. No footsteps. No smell of coffee drifting upstairs. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand. No birthday texts. No missed calls. No notifications except an automated coupon from Sephora and a reminder from the dentist office about my cleaning next Thursday. I remember staring at the screen thinking maybe they were trying to surprise me. Maybe my parents had gone out early to pick up breakfast or balloons or one of those expensive cakes from the bakery downtown with the buttercream roses my mom loved. 18 felt important enough for surprises. At least that's what I told myself while pulling on my gray hoodie and walking into the hallway. My parents' bedroom door was open. Their bed was perfectly made. Not just straightened. Empty. Cold-looking. My father's navy robe wasn't hanging behind the door anymore. My mother's slippers were gone from beside the dresser. Even the framed photo from their anniversary trip to Maine had disappeared from the nightstand. That was the first moment something cold moved through my chest. I walked faster downstairs. "Mom?" My voice sounded strange in the silence. "Dad?" Nothing answered me except the hum of the refrigerator. The kitchen looked wrong too. Too clean. The bowl of fruit was gone from the island. The stack of unopened mail that always sat near the toaster had disappeared. The family calendar hanging beside the pantry had been taken down, leaving behind a pale square on the wall where the paint hadn't faded yet. Then I saw the envelope. It sat alone in the middle of the counter beside a set of keys and an old flip phone I barely recognized. My name was written across the front in my mother's handwriting. Emily. Just Emily. Not sweetheart. Not birthday girl. My hands were already shaking before I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded in half. "You're old enough now. Don't look for us." That was it. No explanation. No apology. No signatures. I actually laughed when I first read it because my brain refused to understand what my eyes were seeing. I checked the back page like maybe there had to be more. There wasn't. I called my mother immediately. Straight to voicemail. My father's phone went directly off too. I tried my brother Jason next even though he was away at college in Chicago. He answered sounding half asleep. "Emily?" he mumbled. "Why are you calling this early? Where are Mom and Dad?" Silence. Not confused silence. Not sleepy silence. Something heavier. "Jason?" I said again. "What's going on? I thought they told you already," he whispered. My stomach dropped so suddenly I had to grab the edge of the counter. "Told me what?" Another silence. Then I heard him exhale shakily. "Emily, I have to call you back." "Jason, don't hang up." But he already had. I stood there in that silent kitchen staring at the note, while the morning light slowly crept across the tile floor. Outside, a garbage truck rumbled somewhere down the street. A dog barked 2 houses over. Normal life kept moving while mine cracked open right in the middle of it. I started opening cabinets without thinking. Half the dishes were missing. The freezer was nearly empty. My father's favorite whiskey glasses were gone from above the sink. I ran upstairs to their closet and stopped cold. Empty hangers swung slightly like someone had moved too quickly. My mother's perfume bottles were gone from the bathroom counter. The medicine cabinet had been cleared out completely except for a box of Band-Aids and expired cough syrup. This wasn't an argument. This wasn't some dramatic walkout after a fight. They had planned this. Carefully. Quietly. Maybe for weeks. Maybe longer. And somehow I had never noticed. I sat on the living room floor hugging my knees while the old grandfather clock ticked against the wall. Tick. 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 Every second made the house feel bigger and emptier. My 18th birthday had barely started, and already I understood something terrifying. The people who were supposed to love me most in the world had left before sunrise without saying goodbye. And deep down, somewhere beneath the panic and confusion, I already knew the worst part wasn't that they were gone. It was that everyone else seemed to know why except me. I stayed on the living room floor for almost an hour without moving. The grandfather clock kept ticking beside the fireplace while sunlight slowly filled the room, exposing all the things I had missed before. Empty spaces. Bare shelves. Dust outlines where framed photographs used to sit. My parents had not vanished overnight in panic. They had erased themselves carefully, piece by piece, while I was still living under the same roof. Around 9 o'clock, I finally forced myself up and walked through the house again, more slowly this time. I noticed things that should have felt obvious earlier. The hallway closet only had my jackets hanging inside. My father's golf clubs were gone from the garage. My mother's gardening boots had disappeared from beside the back door. Even the silver minivan was missing from the driveway, leaving behind a clean rectangle on the concrete where it used to park every night. I opened the refrigerator hoping irrationally that maybe they had only gone away for the weekend. But half the shelves were empty. No almond milk for my mother. No sugar-free yogurt cups for my father. Just leftovers from 2 nights ago and a bottle of ketchup sitting alone near the light. I suddenly remembered dinner from the previous evening with painful clarity. My mother had made lasagna even though it was a Wednesday. She lit candles during dinner, which she almost never did during the week. My father asked me 3 times whether I was excited for graduation next month. At the time I thought they were acting strangely sentimental because I was turning 18. Now every word felt rehearsed. Every smile felt staged. I grabbed the old flip phone from the kitchen counter and turned it on. The battery was nearly dead. There was only one contact saved inside. Jason. Nothing else. No messages. No photos. No explanation. Just my brother's number glowing against the tiny screen. I almost called him again immediately, but something stopped me. The way his voice had changed earlier kept replaying in my head. He had known something. Maybe not everything, but enough to sound guilty. Enough to avoid my questions. I looked outside through the front window and noticed Mrs. Patterson standing across the street beside her mailbox. She was our neighbor for almost 12 years. She used to bring over brownies every Christmas, and once drove me to school when my father's truck broke down. The moment our eyes met, she froze. Then she quickly looked away. That was when the panic returned. I opened the front door and crossed the street barefoot without even realizing it. Mrs. Patterson, I called. She turned slowly, clutching a stack of envelopes against her chest. Emily, honey. Her voice sounded soft in the way adults speak at funerals. Did you see my parents leave? I asked. Her face changed immediately. Not surprise. Not confusion. Recognition. You should probably go back inside, she said quietly. Why? Emily, please just tell me. She hesitated long enough for me to feel my heartbeat climbing into my throat. Your father came by last night, she admitted finally. Around midnight. What did he say? Mrs. Patterson glanced toward my house before answering. He said you would need some time. Time for what? She shook her head slowly. I really thought they explained things to you already. There it was again. The same sentence Jason had said earlier. I stared at her so hard my eyes started watering from the sunlight. Explained what? But she pressed her lips together tightly like she had already said too much. I am sorry, sweetheart, she whispered. I really am. Then she walked back inside her house before I could stop her. I stood alone on the sidewalk, feeling suddenly embarrassed in my oversized hoodie and pajama shorts while lawn sprinklers hissed somewhere nearby. It was barely 10 in the morning, and already the entire neighborhood felt different. Like everyone had quietly agreed to keep me outside some invisible truth. When I walked back into the house, I noticed the answering machine blinking near the kitchen phone. 3 unheard messages. My hand shook as I pressed play. The first was from my Aunt Linda asking my mother to call her back immediately. The second was from a debt collection agency asking for my father by full name. The third message made my stomach twist. Robert, this is your final notice before legal processing begins. We strongly advise you not to ignore this matter any longer. The machine beeped softly afterward. I replayed the message twice, trying to understand it. Legal processing. Debt collectors. My father had worked at the same insurance office for 16 years. My mother managed bookkeeping for a dental clinic downtown. We were not rich, but we were stable. At least I thought we were. I ran upstairs to my parents' bedroom again, and opened drawers more aggressively this time. Most were empty, but hidden beneath a stack of old sweaters in the bottom dresser drawer, I found a folder. Inside were overdue mortgage notices, credit card statements stamped final warning in red letters, and a foreclosure document dated 3 weeks earlier. My knees actually gave out beneath me. I sat down hard on the carpet staring at the numbers. $78,000 overdue. I could barely process it. The house around me suddenly looked different too. Not like a home anymore. Like something already lost. I remembered my father fixing the kitchen sink himself last winter because he said plumbers were overpriced. I remembered my mother pretending she had already eaten dinner some nights. I remembered overhearing arguments stop abruptly whenever I walked into a room. All those little moments I ignored because I trusted them. Because children are supposed to trust their parents. By noon, the silence inside the house felt unbearable. I turned on the television just to hear another human voice, but even that made me anxious. Every ordinary commercial felt wrong against the reality collapsing around me. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Jason finally appeared on the screen. Do not trust everything they told you about yourself. I read it 3 times before realizing my brother had not written about them. He had written about yourself. I did not answer Jason right away. I just sat on the edge of my parents' bed staring at that message while sunlight crawled slowly across the carpet. Do not trust everything they told you about yourself. The sentence felt wrong inside my head, like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong picture. About yourself. Not about the debt. Not about the house. About me. I looked around the bedroom again, but now everything carried a strange feeling I could not explain. My mother's side of the closet had always been larger than my father's. The wallpaper had tiny blue flowers because she loved gardens. The framed beach photo from Cape Cod used to hang above the dresser for as long as I could remember. Yet suddenly the room felt less like a memory and more like a stage set someone abandoned after filming ended. I picked up my phone and finally called Jason back. He answered on the second ring this time. Emily. His voice sounded tired. Older somehow. What did your text mean? Silence again. Then the sound of him breathing heavily through his nose. Where are Mom and Dad? I asked. I do not know exactly. Stop lying to me. My voice cracked harder than I wanted it to. Everybody keeps acting like there is some secret except me. There is, he admitted quietly. Hearing him say it out loud made my chest tighten. Then tell me. I cannot do that over the phone. You owe me an explanation. I know. He paused. Listen to me carefully, okay? Do not sign anything if somebody comes to the house. And do not talk to any lawyers alone. My stomach twisted immediately. Lawyers? Emily, what lawyers? But he ignored the question. There are documents in the garage somewhere. Dad kept copies. Hidden because Mom did not trust online records. Copies of what? Another long silence. Then finally he said something that made my skin go cold. Your birth certificate is not real. I actually laughed from shock. Not because it was funny. Because my brain could not absorb the sentence fast enough. What are you talking about? I have to go. He whispered quickly. Jason, do not hang up. I am serious. Do not trust anybody until I get there. Then the line disconnected again. I stared at my phone in disbelief before throwing it onto the bed beside me. My birth certificate was not real. That did not even make sense. I had a driver's license, a social security number, school records, vaccination forms signed by my pediatrician. People did not fake entire children. At least not normal people living in suburban Ohio with Costco memberships and matching patio furniture. But deep down, beneath the panic, another feeling started growing quietly. Recognition. Tiny moments from my childhood began drifting back in strange disconnected flashes. My mother avoiding baby photo conversations whenever relatives visited. The way Jason looked nothing like me even though everyone insisted we had the same eyes. The fact that my father once got unusually angry when a cashier casually mentioned I did not resemble either parent. At the time I thought he was just stressed. Now I was not sure anymore. I walked downstairs into the garage because standing still had become impossible. The garage smelled faintly like motor oil and cardboard. Half the shelves were already empty, but my father's old metal workbench remained pushed against the back wall beneath hanging tools. I started opening drawers one by one. Tape measures. Loose batteries. Receipts from hardware stores. Nothing useful. Then I noticed scrape marks on the concrete floor near the freezer in the corner. I pulled it aside with both hands until something metallic scraped against my shoe. A small lockbox. My father always mocked people who hid things in movies because he said criminals searched obvious places first. Yet there it was. A black metal box covered in dust. Unlocked. Inside were folders stacked neatly together, with dates written across them in my father's handwriting. Mortgage documents. Bankruptcy notices. Credit card statements. Then one file simply labeled Emily. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped it opening the flap. Inside sat copies of hospital forms from 18 years earlier. Adoption paperwork. Court records. A newspaper clipping about a car accident during a snowstorm. One sentence had been circled heavily in black ink. Local couple loses 6-year-old daughter in Interstate 71 collision. I stared at the names beneath the article until my vision blurred. Robert and Diane Carter. My parents. My fingers suddenly felt numb. Beneath the clipping was another document. Temporary foster placement approval. My name was not Emily Carter. It was Lily Monroe. Date of birth almost matched mine exactly except for one difference. I was born 11 months earlier than I had believed my entire life. I sat down slowly on the cold garage floor while the papers slipped across my lap. Somewhere outside, wind chimes rattled softly from a neighbor's porch. Everything around me still looked ordinary. The same suburban street. The same beige house. The same quiet afternoon sunlight filtering beneath the garage door. But inside me something enormous had shifted sideways. I was not who I thought I was. Even worse, my parents had known every second of my life. I looked again at the newspaper clipping about the little girl they lost. 6 years old. Blonde hair. Blue winter coat in the photograph. She looked nothing like me. Yet suddenly I understood something horrifying. They had not left me behind because they stopped loving me. They left because every time they looked at me, they remembered someone else. I stayed in the garage until the sunlight outside turned gold and thin. The papers remained spread across the concrete floor around me like pieces of somebody else's life. Lily Monroe. Temporary foster placement. Court approval. Every document repeated the same impossible truth until it no longer felt impossible at all. I tried to remember being anyone before Emily Carter, but my memories only reached back to small disconnected images. A yellow blanket. Somebody singing softly near a window. A stuffed rabbit with one missing eye. Nothing solid enough to prove who I used to be. I finally carried the folders back into the house and laid everything across the dining room table. The same table where my mother forced everyone to sit together every Sunday evening no matter how busy life became. Looking at the paperwork there felt wrong somehow, like dragging mud across clean carpet. But nothing about the house felt sacred anymore. I opened the adoption file more carefully this time. The official placement date was exactly 4 months after their daughter died. 4 months. I stared at the timeline for a long time, trying to understand it emotionally instead of legally. Their little girl dies in January. By May, I appear. Not as a visitor. Not temporarily. Permanently. A replacement. The thought made me physically ill. I walked into the downstairs bathroom and splashed cold water against my face while memories started resurfacing differently now. Not new memories. Old ones with new meanings. My mother crying in the laundry room when she thought nobody could hear her. The strange way she stared at me during birthdays sometimes, almost distracted instead of happy. The fact that there were barely any photographs of me younger than 7 hanging in the house. I used to joke about it in high school. Maybe I was just an ugly kid. I would laugh. My mother never laughed back. Around 6 o'clock my stomach finally reminded me I had not eaten all day. I opened the pantry and found almost nothing left except crackers, canned soup, and peanut butter. Another sign I should have noticed earlier. My parents had spent months quietly dismantling our life while pretending everything was normal. I heated soup in the microwave and ate alone at the kitchen island while the television played softly in the background. Every few minutes I checked my phone hoping for another message from Jason, but nothing came. I wanted to hate him for keeping secrets from me, but another part of me kept remembering how frightened he sounded earlier. As if he had spent years carrying something too heavy by himself. After dinner I wandered upstairs again and stopped outside. My old bedroom. For the first time in my life, the room felt unfamiliar. Pale green walls. White bookshelf. The string lights above my bed. It all looked carefully constructed, like parents trying to create a childhood from instructions in a magazine. I sat down beside the window and looked out over the neighborhood while dusk settled across the street. Families were eating dinner behind glowing windows. Porch lights flickered on one by one. Somewhere nearby a father laughed while teaching a child to ride a bicycle. Ordinary life continued everywhere except inside my house. My phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Hello? For a moment nobody spoke. Then I heard my mother breathing softly on the other end. My entire body went rigid. Mom? Silence again. I could hear traffic somewhere around her, distant and hollow. Are you okay? I asked quietly. Still nothing. Then finally she whispered. Did you find the papers? I closed my eyes immediately because hearing her voice made everything hurt worse instead of better. Who am I? The question came out smaller than I intended. My mother inhaled sharply like I had physically struck her. Emily, do not call me that if it is not my name. Another silence stretched between us. Then I heard her begin crying softly. Not dramatic crying. Exhausted crying. The kind people do when they have already cried too many times before. We loved you, she whispered. You have to believe that. I looked around my bedroom at the carefully folded blankets, the graduation invitation stacked on my desk, the framed family photograph from Disney World 3 summers earlier. My father had his arm around me in that picture. My mother was smiling. Jason was making some ridiculous face to ruin the photo. We looked normal. Happy even. Then why did you leave? I asked. Her breathing became uneven again. Because staying became impossible. That is not an answer. You were never supposed to find out this way. Anger finally pushed through the numbness inside me. There was never going to be a good way, I said. You let me live 18 years inside somebody else's life. No, she whispered immediately. You were never somebody else to me. I almost believed her for one dangerous second. Then I remembered the newspaper clipping hidden in the garage. Their daughter with blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Their real daughter. Did you ever even want me? I asked. The silence afterward lasted so long I thought the call disconnected. Then, finally, my mother answered in a voice so broken I barely recognized it. At first, I wanted to survive. Tears burned suddenly behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Where are you? I cannot tell you. Why? Because there are people looking for your father. I gripped the edge of my desk hard enough for my fingers to ache. So you left me alone to deal with everything? We left you the house. I laughed once quietly because the sound coming from her did not even feel like my mother anymore. The bank already owns the house. She started crying harder after that. I listened for a few seconds before speaking again. Jason knew. He found out 2 years ago. She admitted. He was angry too. Did everybody know except me? My mother did not answer directly. She only whispered something that chilled me more than anything else she had said all day. There are things about your past we never told anyone. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my mother's voice repeating the same sentence over and over. There are things about your past we never told anyone. The words followed me through the dark like something alive. Around 3 in the morning I wandered downstairs wrapped in a blanket and sat alone at the kitchen island staring at the stack of documents again. The house creaked softly around me in the cold silence. Pipes ticking inside the walls. Refrigerator humming faintly. Familiar sounds that suddenly felt temporary, like the house itself already belonged to somebody else. I picked up the foster placement papers again and looked more carefully at the names listed near the bottom. Temporary caseworker approval signed by someone named Margaret Holloway. County Family Services Department. Cincinnati, Ohio. One detail immediately stood out to me. The paperwork listed my placement as emergency. Reassignment. Not adoption. Not permanent custody. Emergency reassignment. The wording made my stomach tighten. I opened my laptop and searched the term online for almost an hour. Most results describe temporary placement situations involving unstable homes, missing parents, or ongoing investigations. Investigations. I sat back slowly in my chair. My entire life, my parents told me my biological mother died shortly after childbirth and that I had no surviving relatives. It was a simple sad story. Easy. Clean. But now even that memory felt manufactured. Around sunrise I finally noticed another paper tucked inside the folder beneath the legal documents. It was older than everything else, folded so many times the edges had turned soft. A handwritten letter. The ink had faded slightly, but I could still read it clearly. Her name is Lily. She likes strawberry milk and sleeps with the hallway light on. Please tell her I did not leave because I wanted to. My hands started trembling immediately. There was no signature. Just those 2 sentences. I read them again and again until the words blurred together. Somebody had written that about me. Somebody who knew me before I became Emily Carter. My throat tightened so painfully I had to put the letter down. I suddenly remembered something strange from childhood. I could not have been older than 6 or 7. I used to insist on sleeping with the hallway light on every night. My mother once snapped at me for it after finding the electric bill spread across the kitchen counter. You are too old for this, she had said sharply before looking instantly guilty afterward. At the time I thought she was just stressed. Now I wondered if hearing that habit reminded her I came from somewhere else. My phone buzzed suddenly against the countertop. Jason again. Did Mom call you? The message read. I stared at it for a long moment before replying. Yes. 3 dots appeared immediately on the screen. Disappeared. Returned again. Finally another message arrived. I am driving home. Relief washed through me so quickly it almost hurt. Despite everything, part of me still needed somebody who understood this nightmare too. How long? I asked. About 6 hours. I looked around the empty kitchen while waiting for another response. Morning light had started creeping through the blinds, painting pale stripes across the floor. Usually my mother would already be making pancakes on birthdays. She always insisted birthdays deserved real breakfasts no matter how busy life became. The memory hit me so hard I had to look away from the sunlight entirely. Another message from Jason appeared. There is something Dad never told Mom. My heartbeat quickened immediately. What? This time his response took longer. I think your biological mother might still be alive. I actually stopped breathing for a second. The silence inside the kitchen suddenly felt enormous. Alive. The word echoed through my chest like something dangerous. That is impossible. I typed back finally. They said she died. Dad lied about a lot of things. Before I could answer, another message arrived from an unknown number. Miss Carter, this is Daniel Reeves from Franklin and Associates Legal Services. We need to discuss the property located on Meadow Creek Lane. My chest tightened instantly. Lawyers. Just like Jason warned me. I ignored the message, but seconds later my phone rang. Same number. I let it ring twice before answering cautiously. Hello? Miss Carter? The man's voice sounded professional and calm. Yes. I apologize for contacting you during a difficult time. We have been trying to reach your parents for several weeks. I said nothing. Your father listed you as secondary contact regarding the foreclosure proceedings. Hearing the word out loud made my stomach twist again. I do not know where they are, I said quietly. I understand. Unfortunately, the property is scheduled for formal seizure within 10 business days unless payment arrangements are made. I looked around the kitchen slowly while he spoke. 10 days. 10 days before strangers could legally walk through this house carrying clipboards and change the locks on the front door. Miss Carter? Yes. There is also another matter involving a private claim connected to your father. Every muscle in my body tensed. What kind of claim? Papers shuffled softly on. His end of the line. It concerns a sealed family services case from 18 years ago. My skin went cold instantly. I think you have the wrong person. No, he said gently. I do not believe I do. I gripped the edge of the counter harder. Who are you really? The man hesitated before answering carefully. Someone recently reopened an inquiry involving your original guardianship transfer. The kitchen suddenly felt too small to breathe inside. What inquiry? Another pause. Then he spoke the sentence that changed everything again. Miss Carter, there are questions about whether your adoption was ever legally authorized. I did not realize the lawyer was still speaking until he said my name again. Miss Carter? My mouth felt dry. What does that mean exactly? I asked quietly. Papers shuffled again on his end of the line. It means there are inconsistencies in the original custody authorization filed in Hamilton County 18 years ago. I pressed my hand against the kitchen counter because suddenly the room felt unstable beneath me. Are you saying I was kidnapped? The words sounded unreal coming out of my own mouth. I am saying there are legal questions that were never fully resolved. He spoke carefully, like someone stepping across thin ice. Questions involving your biological mother's consent. I closed my eyes immediately. Somewhere outside, a lawn-mower started humming faintly down the street. Ordinary suburban noise. Birds chirping. Somebody backing a car out of a driveway. Meanwhile, my entire identity kept collapsing sentence by sentence. Who reopened the case? I asked. I am not authorized to discuss that. Was it my father? No. My stomach tightened instantly. Then who? He hesitated just long enough to confirm the answer mattered. A woman named Claire Monroe. The name hit me like cold water. Monroe. Same last name from the documents. My real last name. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table because my knees suddenly felt weak again. She says she is your biological mother. For several seconds I could not speak at all. I just stared at the family calendar stains still visible on the wall where sunlight hit the faded square of paint. Biological mother. Alive. Looking for me. Every version of my life I had believed 24 hours ago now felt childish and fragile. Why now? I whispered finally. According to the filing, she claimed she spent years attempting to locate you. I laughed softly under my breath because the sound coming from me no longer felt connected to emotion anymore. It felt mechanical. And suddenly she found me the same week my parents disappeared? Miss Carter, I understand this is overwhelming. You do not understand anything. Silence settled between us for a moment before he spoke again more gently. There is also a storage unit registered under your father's name. We believe some additional records may be there. My heartbeat quickened. Where? He gave me an address on the north side of town along with a unit number. You should not go alone, he added carefully. Why not? Another pause. Because your father emptied several financial accounts immediately before leaving. Federal investigators are involved now. The line went quiet after that except for my own breathing. I suddenly pictured my father differently. Not as the tired suburban insurance employee grilling hamburgers on summer evenings or complaining about football scores from the couch, but as someone carrying hidden panic for years. Secret debts. Secret documents. Secret lies. Did he do something illegal? I asked quietly. I strongly advise you to speak with representation before discussing anything further. That was not an answer, which meant it probably was. After the call ended, I remained frozen at the table for a long time staring at nothing. My phone screen slowly darkened in my hand. Claire Monroe. I whispered the name out loud once just to hear how it sounded. Strange. Familiar. Sad. I tried imagining her face but could not. Did she look like me? Did she have my eyes? My smile? Did she spend 18 birthdays wondering where I was while I blew out candles beside another family pretending everything was normal? A sharp ache spread slowly through my chest at the thought. I stood up abruptly and walked upstairs to the hallway bathroom. Above the sink hung the same mirror I used every morning. Before school. I stared at my reflection longer than I ever had before. Brown hair. Gray eyes. Freckles across my nose. Features I had always accepted without question. My mother used to joke that my eyes came from some distant Irish ancestor in my father's family. Was that a lie too? I searched my own face desperately for traces of people I no longer understood. Then another memory surfaced suddenly. I was maybe 10 years old sitting at the kitchen table coloring while my parents argued quietly in the next room. She is asking questions already, my mother whispered sharply. Children notice things, my father replied. We cannot keep pretending forever. At the time I assumed they were talking about money or marriage problems. Now the memory settled differently inside me. They had always known this day might come. They had just hoped it would happen later. Maybe after college. Maybe after they were gone completely. My phone buzzed again. Jason. I crossed into Ohio. 2 more hours. I typed back immediately. Who is Claire Monroe? This time his response took longer than usual. Finally 3 words appeared on my screen. Dad was terrified. Fear slid quietly through me then because Jason did not answer my question at all. Terrified of what? I sent back quickly. No answer came. Instead, another message appeared from a completely different unknown number. Emily? This is Claire. I know you probably hate me already, but please let me explain what really happened 18 years ago. I stared at the message so long the screen dimmed again. Then another text arrived beneath it almost immediately. Your parents did not save you from me. They took you from me. The house suddenly felt too quiet again. Not empty quiet this time. Dangerous quiet. Like every wall inside it had been holding secrets for years and finally ran out of places to hide them. I did not answer Claire's message right away. I just stood there in the hallway staring at my phone while my reflection blurred faintly in the bathroom mirror behind me. Your parents did not save you from me. They took you from me. The sentence felt too enormous to process all at once. My entire childhood suddenly split into 2 separate versions. The life I remembered, and the life hidden underneath it. I walked downstairs slowly and locked the front door for the first time all day. Not because I thought someone dangerous would come inside, but because the house no longer felt safe in an emotional way. Every room held memories that now carried different meanings. The piano in the living room where my mother taught me Christmas songs. The growth marks penciled onto the laundry room wall every birthday. The family vacations framed in matching silver picture frames upstairs. I used to think those memories proved I belonged here. Now I wondered if they were proof of how badly everyone wanted me to belong. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Claire. I know this sounds impossible. I could explain everything if you let me. I sat down carefully on the couch before replying. Why did you not find me sooner? The response came almost immediately. Because they changed your name and moved counties after taking custody. My chest tightened. You are lying. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Returned again. I wish I was. A cold heaviness settled over me then. I looked around the quiet living room while memories kept surfacing faster now. Strange little moments that once felt harmless. My mother refusing to let me attend sleepovers until middle school because she worried someone might ask questions. The time I found old legal papers hidden behind winter coats in the hallway closet, and my father became unusually angry. The fact that we moved twice before I turned 8 even though my parents always claimed they hated relocating. At the time those things felt random. Now they lined up differently. My phone rang suddenly. Jason. I answered immediately. Tell me the truth, I said before he could speak. Silence filled the line for several seconds. Then I heard him exhale slowly. I was hoping you would not find out everything at once. Too late. Another silence. Did they steal me? The words sounded terrible out loud. Jason did not answer immediately, which scared me more than if he had shouted no. Jason. Dad said it was complicated. That is not an answer. Emily. Stop calling me that if nobody knows who I actually am. My voice cracked sharply enough that I had to press my hand against my forehead. I heard Jason breathing heavily through the phone like he was trying to choose his words carefully. Mom and Dad lost their daughter, he said quietly. I know that part. Mom completely fell apart afterward. She stopped eating. She barely spoke for months. I stared blankly at the television across the room while he continued. Then one day Dad met a social worker through someone at church. He found out about you. Found out what about me? Another hesitation. Your biological mother was struggling financially after your father left. There were custody issues. Temporary foster placement happened while she got back on her feet. My stomach dropped instantly. Temporary. Not permanent. Dad told Mom it was only supposed to be for a little while. Jason admitted. But Mom got attached to you fast. Attached. The word stung more than it should have. Like describing a pet somebody accidentally kept. And then what? I whispered. Then your biological mother tried to get you back. The room suddenly felt colder around me. Dad panicked. Jason continued softly. He thought losing you would destroy Mom all over again. I closed my eyes tightly because deep down I already knew where the story was heading. What did he do? Jason's silence lasted so long I almost thought the call disconnected. He used money. My chest tightened painfully. Money? The social worker falsified documents. Dad paid her. I actually stopped breathing for a second. Somewhere outside, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance as clouds gathered over the neighborhood. No, I whispered automatically. Dad would never. But even while saying it, I remembered the hidden debts. The legal notices. The panic. He convinced himself he was saving our family. Jason said quietly. Mom never knew the full truth until years later. I opened my eyes slowly and stared at the family photograph sitting beside the television. Disney World. Summer heat. Fake smiles frozen forever behind glass. You knew this for 2 years? Dad told me after I found old records in the basement. His voice cracked slightly then. I wanted to tell you so many times. But you did not. I was scared. Rain finally started tapping softly against the windows. The room darkened as clouds swallowed the afternoon sunlight. I sat there listening to the storm build while something inside me slowly shifted from confusion into grief. Not just grief for the life I lost. Grief for how broken everybody already was before I even entered their story. Did Mom really love me? I asked quietly. Jason answered immediately this time. More than anything. Tears finally slipped down my face then, silent and hot against my skin. Then why did they leave me? Jason inhaled shakily before answering. Because the investigation reopened 3 weeks ago. Dad thought if authorities came after them, they would take everything. So they ran? Dad thought leaving would protect you. I laughed softly through the tears because the sentence sounded absurd now. Protect me. They abandoned me in a collapsing house filled with lies and legal threats while strangers searched for answers about my identity. Then Jason said something that frightened me more than anything else so far. Emily, there's one thing Claire is not telling you either. My heartbeat slowed instantly. What? Thunder cracked louder outside this time. Your biological father never disappeared. Silence stretched heavily between us. Then Jason whispered, Dad believed he was looking for you too. The storm lasted most of the evening. Rain streaked down the windows while thunder rolled softly above the neighborhood, turning the house darker and smaller with every passing hour. After my call with Jason ended, I sat alone in the living room wrapped in silence again, staring at the reflection of lightning across the television screen. Somewhere out there, according to him, another man had spent 18 years searching for me too. Not because he loved me necessarily. Not because he missed birthdays or scraped knees or school concerts. But because I existed. Because I belonged to a story nobody ever allowed him to finish. I did not know what frightened me more anymore. The possibility that my adoptive father stole me. Or the possibility that my biological parents failed to stop him. Around 8 o'clock, headlights finally swept across the front windows. My chest tightened instantly. For one wild second I thought my parents had come back. I actually stood up too quickly and nearly tripped over the blanket tangled around my legs. But when the front door opened, Jason stepped inside soaked from the rain instead. He looked exhausted. Older than 22. His brown hair dripped onto the hardwood floor while he closed the door quietly behind him. For a few seconds we just stared at each other across the room. Brothers and sisters are supposed to share history. Shared parents. Shared memories. Shared truths. Suddenly even that felt uncertain. Hey, he said softly. I folded my arms tighter across my chest. How much did you know? Jason lowered his eyes immediately. Not everything. That is not what I asked. Rain hammered harder against the windows while he removed his wet jacket slowly. Dad told me 2 years ago after the bankruptcy started getting worse, he admitted. He was drinking a lot by then. He thought the investigation might reopen eventually. Investigation. I repeated the word bitterly because hearing it attached to my family still sounded unreal. Jason sat carefully at the edge of the couch like he was afraid any sudden movement might break something fragile between us. He swore he loved you, he said quietly. I do not care what he swore anymore. But even saying it hurt. Because I did care. That was the problem. I still remembered my father teaching me how to drive in the empty church parking lot near our house. I remembered him carrying me upstairs after I fell asleep during movies. I remembered him crying quietly when I graduated high school last month. None of those memories felt fake. That was what made everything worse. Jason rubbed both hands over his face tiredly. Mom wanted to tell you years ago. Then why did she not? Because she was terrified you would leave. I looked away toward the dark kitchen because suddenly tears threatened again. Maybe I should have. Emily, stop saying my name like you know who I am. The words came out. Sharper than I intended. Jason flinched slightly but nodded. Okay. Silence settled heavily between us after that. The storm outside softened into steady rain while the grandfather clock ticked slowly beside the fireplace. Finally Jason reached into his backpack and pulled out a worn manila envelope. Dad gave me this before they disappeared. My stomach tightened instantly. What is it? He said only to give it to you if things fell apart. I took the envelope carefully. My father's handwriting covered the front. For Emily. Just seeing the letters made my chest ache unexpectedly. I opened it slowly while Jason watched me from across the couch. Inside was a flash drive and a folded note. My hands trembled slightly unfolding the paper. I never learned how to survive losing a child, my father had written. Then one day I saw you sitting alone in a county office coloring quietly while adults argued around you. You looked scared. Your mother looked broken. And I made the worst decision of my life because I could not watch another little girl disappear. I stopped reading for a moment because suddenly I could hear my father's voice saying the words inside my head. Calm. Guilty. Exhausted. I forced myself to continue. Everything after that became lies built on top of fear. But loving you was never part of the lie. My vision blurred briefly. Jason looked away politely like he understood I did not want him watching me cry. There is a video on the flash drive, he said quietly. Dad recorded it 3 nights before they left. I stared down at the small silver drive resting in my palm. A tiny object carrying answers capable of destroying what little remained of my family. Why did they really run? I asked softly. Jason hesitated before answering. Claire hired a private investigator 6 months ago. Dad found out. And? The investigator uncovered the forged documents. My heartbeat quickened again. So Dad panicked? Jason nodded slowly. There is more. I looked up immediately. What? His expression changed then. Not guilt this time. Fear. Dad believed someone else was getting close too. The room suddenly felt colder around us. Who? Jason swallowed hard. Before speaking. Your biological father. Lightning flashed outside, briefly illuminating the entire living room in white. Dad said if he ever found you, he would take you back no matter what it cost. I stared at him without speaking. Somewhere deep inside me, another terrible realization quietly formed. Everybody in this story kept talking about me like I was something passed between grieving adults. Something lost. Something stolen. Something claimed. But nobody had ever asked what I wanted. Then Jason said one final thing that made the silence inside the house feel unbearable again. Emily, I do not think your biological father knows your parents disappeared yet. I did not watch the video that night. I could not. The flash drive sat on the coffee table between Jason and me while rain slid slowly down the windows and the storm finally drifted farther across town. Every few minutes lightning still flickered faintly in the distance, illuminating the living room in pale flashes. The house smelled like wet pavement and dust. Familiar. Temporary. Fragile. Jason eventually fell asleep on the opposite couch sometime after midnight with one arm hanging over the side and his shoes still on. I stayed awake staring at the flash drive for hours. My father's final explanation waited inside that tiny silver piece of metal, but I already understood something painful. No explanation was going to restore the version of my life that disappeared yesterday morning. Around 4 o'clock I finally carried my laptop into the kitchen and inserted the drive. There was only one file. dad_final.mov. My hands shook slightly as I clicked play. The screen flickered for a second before my father appeared sitting alone in what looked like a cheap motel room. He looked older than I remembered. Exhausted. His eyes were red like he had not slept in days. For a few seconds he just stared silently into the camera before speaking. Hi, sweetheart. Hearing his voice nearly broke me immediately. Not because it sounded evil. Because it sounded like my father. The same calm voice that taught me multiplication tables and helped me practice driving and called me kiddo every Saturday morning. If you are watching this, he continued quietly. Then things unfolded the way I feared they would. He looked down briefly before continuing. I know you probably hate me right now. Maybe you should. I sat completely still while the refrigerator hummed softly behind me. I told myself for 18 years that love could justify what I did, he said. But love built on fear eventually becomes something ugly. Tears burned behind my eyes again. My father rubbed one hand across his face tiredly before speaking again. The truth is your mother and I were drowning after losing Claire. My chest tightened instantly because hearing him say their daughter's name out loud made her feel suddenly real. Not just a newspaper clipping anymore. Then one day I met you. He smiled sadly at something beyond the camera. You were sitting in a county office coloring a picture of a dog. You barely spoke. The social worker told me your mother was struggling financially after your father disappeared. He paused. I should have helped legally. I know that now. But grief makes people selfish in ways they do not recognize until much later. I looked down at my own hands because suddenly I could not bear watching his face anymore. I told myself we were rescuing you, he whispered. Then months passed. Your mother started smiling again. You called me Dad for the first time. His voice cracked completely there. And I became terrified someone would take you away. Silence filled the kitchen for several seconds except for the rain outside. Your biological mother fought harder than anyone ever told you, he admitted quietly. That is the truth. I closed my eyes immediately because something about that sentence hurt worse than the lies. Somewhere out there was a woman who spent years trying to find me while I blew out birthday candles with another family. I forged documents. My father continued finally. I paid people. I justified every terrible decision because I convinced myself losing you would destroy all of us. He leaned closer toward the camera slightly then, his expression exhausted and full of shame. But none of that was your fault. Tears slid silently down my face while he continued speaking. You were never a replacement for Claire. Not to me. You became entirely your own person the moment you laughed at one of my terrible pancake jokes when you were 4 years old. I laughed softly through tears because I actually remembered that morning. Burned pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse ears. My mother pretending to be annoyed while secretly smiling. My father swallowed hard before speaking again. There is one last thing you deserve to know. My stomach tightened immediately. Your biological father found Claire 6 months ago. The kitchen suddenly felt colder around me. He hired investigators after reconnecting with your mother. My father lowered his eyes. He does not know where you are yet, but he is still searching. I stared blankly at the screen while thunder rumbled faintly somewhere far away now. His name is Daniel Monroe, my father said quietly. And if he finds you before I can explain everything properly, he will tell you I stole you because he hates me. He paused. Maybe he is right. My father looked directly into the camera then in a way that felt almost unbearable. But if there is one thing I need you to believe, it is this. Every bedtime story. Every birthday. Every time I held your hand crossing a parking lot or stayed awake while you were sick or cried watching you graduate, none of that was fake. His voice finally broke completely. You were my daughter long before I deserved to call you that. The screen stayed silent for a moment after he finished speaking. Then he reached forward and turned the camera off. I sat there in the dim kitchen long after the video ended while dawn slowly began lightening the windows. Across the room, the family photographs hanging on the wall looked different now. Not false exactly. Just incomplete. Somewhere outside this house was another family connected to me by blood and grief and 18 years of silence. Somewhere else my parents were hiding from consequences they could no longer outrun. And sitting alone in the middle of all of it, I realized something strange. For the first time since waking up to that empty house, I stopped trying to figure out who had the right to claim me. Because after 18 years of lies and loss and fear, there was only one thing I knew for certain anymore. Whoever I became next was finally going to be my choice.